Hey everyone, welcome back to another video in Java programming series in 2025, and in this video we'll be discussing about for loop. So far we have been writing code one at a time, one statement at a time, and executing something, and in last video we talked about ternary operator. So in today's video we'll be discussing how can we write some code that repeatedly gets executed. All right, so first of all, let me create a file and I'll explain how does that exactly work. So I'm going to be writing the file name as for loop, and then we will be discussing about for loop today. So we have different types of loop, and then the one is for, and the another one is while, and another one is do while. And there are different implementation of for. So far, if we want to print, let's say, any number in between 1 to 10, so we have to write system.out.println 1, 2, and up to 10 step by step. Either we can concatenate, well, if we want to, let's say, print every number below 10, right, or 100 or 1000, so that becomes quite repetitive and it's not even practical when we want to print something like that, right? So what if we had some way to represent that exactly in code? And this is what for loop or any other kinds of loop allows us to do, right? So the for loop has a syntax of, for example, this initialization, and then some condition, and then some operation like increment or decrement. And we have talked about this increment or decrement in our last videos. All right, so let's say I want to print something, some numbers from 1 to 100, right? So I'm going to be saying, well, I'm going to be printing something up to 100, okay? So then how can I do that? So the syntax of for is, so for, and then this initialization, and then here is the body. Okay, so that this body means some code, some Java code, right? So I'm going to be writing a simple for loop that executes some operations repeatedly. Okay, so for, and so like I said, what's the initialization? I'm going to be like naming a variable int. I'm going to be like saying integer I equals, I'm going to be starting from 1. You can start from anywhere you like, right? I'm going to be starting from 1, and then comma, so it should be actually comma, right? And so comma, this is the syntax, okay? The comma, and this is variable name. It can be anything, and this starting value can also be anything, and this is the type of the data. Since I want to print from 1 to 100, like it's a whole number, I'm representing it as an integer. All right, 1. And what is the condition? So that means this I is less than 100. So we were 100, but I'm storing 100 as n, so I'm going to be saying n, and then I plus plus, right? That means this is post increment. So what this is doing is I'm starting from 1 till n and I plus plus. So every time I write something, I'm going to be incrementing value, this value. That means I equals I plus 1, so I will be 2, 3, and up to 100. Okay, and here I'm simply gonna print ln, and I equals, and then I. All right, let me run it. Okay, there you go. So here we have printed from 1, it has started from 1 to 99. And what happens when you forget to, let's say, increment or decrement something here? All right, let me run it. Look at this. This is infinitely scrolling, and this is a common mistake that beginners do. So why this is happening? It is because we have forgot to. So every time the loop is executing, the condition is always true because we haven't said I to increment or decrement or something. So it is always like I equals 1, and then I 1 less than 100 is always going to be true. So it is very important to increment the loop value here. All right. So if I do it, and since we have, and since but the last value is 99, it is because we have forgot equal sign. That means it has to be equal to 100. So if I print it, it will print 1 till 100. All right, so that was like the common syntax of for. Also going to be introducing something known as break or continue. So these are two important topics that we can discuss separately, but I think, let's say you want to print only even numbers in between. I'm going to be changing it to 10. So let's say you want to print even numbers in between 1 to 10, or you can say 0 to 10, right? So what can I do is I equals 0, I equals to 0, and I less than or equals to n, and I plus plus. Now what I'm going to do is if I print just like this, right? Just like this, it's going to print I, so it's the same. But what I want to do is if this I, when it is even, that means 2 modulo equal 0, then what am I going to do is I'm going to be continuing. So continue. All right, so what does continue do is it skips this current iteration so that it doesn't print this one. That means anything after this block will not be executed for this current value of I, right? But the next time it will be executed. So let me start with 1. So if I print it, let me show you. All right, as out and even numbers, it should be even. And if I execute it, look at this. Continue. Oh, sorry, I printed odd numbers. That means it should be not equal to 2. So it should be not equal to 0. That means when something divided by 2, it's not giving the remainder of 0. It's in odd number. So we are skipping that, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if you want odd, you just remove this exclamation and add extra equal. All right. So, and let's say sometimes what you want to do is not only yan, but if it is, let's say 10, you don't want to print, okay? Or let's say if it is 8, you don't want to print. So we can say, we can use break for that. So if I equal 8, okay? So you want to break, that means this loop now will be exceeded. So you will come out of this loop. Not only skip the current iteration, but you will break out of this loop. And this is useful when you already want to exit, right? So let's say you wanted to search a number you already found, and there are like large number of records in your, let's say, list or some value from database, and you don't want to continue anymore because you already found it, or you already decided that okay, my requirement is achieved. So in this case you can use break, right? So now let me show you. If I print it, so 246, because as soon as I reached 8, it broke out of the loop, and then also 8 and 10 were skipped, right? So but in previous version, this continue, it was just escaping the current version. All right, so similarly, we can also use a nested for loop. So, and like I said, we can also use something like, for example, j equals 0, something like that, and separated by comma. And then we can also do j plus plus, and then you can also print j. All right, so and I and j. Let me show you. Look at this. So j is 135. Okay. J is going to be 1, 3, 5 because we have continued here. So that means the every alternate step is getting executed. Not every single operations are getting executed. All right. So similarly, we can nest two different for loops. For example, let's say I have a for loop, one for loop integer a equals 0 and then a less than 100 and I sorry a plus plus, and if I want to print I'll be making it to just 10, and I want to write another for loop. So for integer b equals 0 and b less than again 10 and b plus plus. So if I write, for example, io.println a and then b, if I run this program, look at this, nested, and let me run it again. So here we go. So nested. So if you look at this, let me show you a small example and then you will understand it clearly. All right. When something is nested, look at this. So for 0, less than 2 and a plus plus, this is going to be executed two times because 0 and then 1, right? And for 1, it is also going to be executed two times. That means for each and every outer variable, it is going to be executed as many times as this once, right? Or so for example, if there are three elements, this is going to be executed. So how many number of times? In this case, three. So if we have, let's say, a five here, it's going to be executed uh, more number of times, right? So for 0, it is going to be executed five times, and then for 1, it is going to be executed five times. So whenever the number of variables or the number of operation in outer loop increases, and it is going to be multiplied by quadratically. That means for every n outside and every n inside, it is going to be executed n square times, right? So these kind of operations you can use in so whenever you want to do some operations and you cannot complete in a single loop. All right. And so for example, this loop can be used to print a table, multiplication table, for example, and you can say a times, okay, a and then plus and then times and then b equals and plus and then equals. So you can just say a times b, okay? So I'm going to be concatenating it. All right. So you are going to print a table that is a times b equals a times b. So it's a multiplication table. Look at this. So 0 times 0, 0, 0 times 0, 0, 1 times 0, and all right. So if I start from 1, it will make a lot of sense. And let's say 5 and 5. All right. Now look at this multiplication. 1 times 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there you go. So you can, this is how you can, and this is pretty useful when you want to process metrics, which is usually 2 by 2. All right. So that was pretty much it for this video. Basically when you are doing a looping, especially like for loop or any kind of loop, it is very important that you initialize a variable and you keep some condition. And I just wanted to show you that you can write multiple initialization variables and multiple conditions here. And this last one is optional, but use carefully. For example, syntactically, if you can include two semicolon, it is fine. And also these continue and break, they are widely used in for loop. because you cannot use it in, let's say, a normal if else or something like that, right? Because they are used to break of the loop or skip the current iteration, and it's to continue does skip the current iteration, and break actually breaks out of loop. So if you break, for example, here, so let's say if you break here, the outer loop will continue, it will only break the inner loop, right? So the current loop, wherever you placed matters. And if you place here, for example, it will exit from this inner loop, right? Look at this scope. This is inside the outer loop, and this break is inside the inner loop. All right, so that was pretty important thing to understand. And so if you understand these concepts, it will help you a lot. And I hope you understood something from this tutorial. And if you have any confusions, please let me know in the comment section. And I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.